Hello and welcome back. Some people had asked a little bit about design documents and kind of planning ahead and what that was all about. And up until now, I've been definitely just sort of creating and doing demos and little lessons, kind of off the cuff and not really thinking about an overall game design. So let's talk a little bit about how potentially you would do that. And maybe you want to use this to kind of create yourself a roadmap so that you can kind of get to the end of the road before the end of your project. So let's take a look. I'm going to do this sort of on the computer as opposed to normally I would sort of do it on a piece of paper and kind of with notes and things. But since I already have a project started, I figured what the heck, we'll kind of do it on the computer. It's also easier to see here. Now, one of the things I do want to do is I want to create a simple text document. So I'm going to come over here into my project and I'm going to say Open C# project. And in here, I want to create a file. I'm going to say file new file. And I think it will ask me what type of file. Yes, okay, what type of file? So I'm just going to say text file and open. And I can say save as. So save text file 1.text as, and we'll call it my design guide.txt, something like that, and put it in the assets folder. Save. So we should see it show up sooner or later. It should be in here. There it is, my design guide. All right, so if I click on it, we would see it over in here, but we really want to check it out here. And let's keep that sort of over to the side, and we'll come back to that as sort of necessary, and we'll add some notes in there. All right, so we're keeping that around, and we'll keep it over sort of on the side. All right, next, let's think about, we sort of have a little bit of a game, a little bit of a stage here, and the scene view is really what's important here. So I'm going to zoom out so you kind of see the whole world. And what I've been planning, what I've been doing here is I have this tile map background. And if we look up here in our tile maps, you'll see, let's see, grid. There's the platforms, which is our normal tile maps. You can say, okay, focus on the tile maps. There they are. And there's also this one called world limit. Right? And I just used a coin. It's just use any image to kind of just say, okay, this is the limits of the world, and then I can use a tile map collider on there, and that's just the end of the world. So if anything touches that, or if the player touches that, that's the end of the world. So that's kind of how I did it. I could make the world any size I really wanted. I could even say take that focus off, and maybe I decided I want to make the world wider here. So I'll grab the eraser, and I will erase all this. And I'll grab my little coin because that's what I wanted to use, and I'll make it a little bit wider. And just sort of paint in the world. I could have done it as a fill. That probably would have get my lines a little straighter, neater. It's not super important that these things be as smooth as possible. They're really just to be sort of the end limits of the world. So if for some reason the player jumps off of that, there's some end of the world. All right, so now I'm really into this design mode. And this is really meant to be, I'm going to go into my palettes platform here. And here I want to say, okay, let's figure out how the world is going to be. Now the player is starting off over in here, and maybe I want to change that. So I could certainly say, well, where does the player start? Maybe the player starts down here. Maybe this is the beginning of the world. So I will have this part of the world down here, and I'm just going to kind of paint some things in. And let's go get our player, our hero. There's our hero. And we'll go to move the hero mode here, so to speak. All right. And let's bring our hero over here. All right. So that's where the hero is going to start. And we want our hero to be able to sort of get somewhere. All right, so let's think. Well, let's say, for the sake of argument, we're going to say that the goal of the game is that the hero should get up here, and there's going to be some kind of goal. And I'm just painting this in as a tile, as a palette here. So there's going to be a chest up there, and I'm going to say, okay, that's where the player wins. So I'll make myself a note. Player moves from lower left, or starts at lower left. Goal is to reach the treasure at top. All right, now what is it about that goal? We'll say, well, let's think about how we might want to have some scoring. So that's the goal, to reach that. Scoring is based on, what are we going to say, collecting coins and in a certain time limit, perhaps. So maybe there's a multiplier, or we could say time runs out in 3 minutes. Start with potentially 3 treasure chests. One disappears each minute. Something like that. That sounds interesting. All right, so there's our bit of a design. And we could say player can run and jump. Player can, what, throw ninja stars. All right. Enemies include, what, the mashing mace that bashes the ground as it moves, or something like that. What else? Player avoids swinging maces. Inanimate. They'll move, but they're not alive, so to speak. Player gets, what, 3 lives? If player falls off world, loses a life. All right. Other treasure chests may include new lives. Livers? No. Lives. Or bonus coins. Or multipliers. Or time stop. All right, so this is our little design document here. So I can see I'm going to need some things in the scene. I have that mashing mace. Where's that going to be? I need to run and jump, and there's going to be this notion of throwing ninja stars. There's a treasure chest, and so on. So now, let's say, save that. Put that behind us now, and let's get back to here. Okay, with the player, we have some mashing maces. Maybe we'll have some treasure chest. So let's go back over here and let's do a little painting. And let's see. Now, if I just made it real obvious of like, all right, we could go this way and then the player would have to go, we could sort of design the player path if we wanted to somehow, how are they going to go in the opposite way? How are they going to get from there to there? So maybe there's, because you'd only be able to jump that way. I guess you could jump this way. So we'll say, all right, there's another way up this way. And maybe it kind of just walks up that way. Carries across. And here's what we'll join that. And then come down here. And maybe you can jump over to here. And get over here. And here. And eventually, somehow, they'll get up to here. All right. So here's sort of our world. And we could do some things. We could erase a couple of things. Maybe have to have some holes in here. Maybe there's some moving platforms. Put that there. Maybe this is something here that you have to, there's a platform that has to lift here, and that's going to be out of the way until you trigger something, until you fight something. So maybe there's like a coin you have to get to up here, and something like that. All right, so let's see. Now we can start to test it, right? So we can say, okay, the player starts there. Be good to have, say, the scene on the side here now, right? So the player's walking around. And I have the camera moving. I could have mentioned that in my design document. Let me go back over here, walking around. All right, it looks like things are going to be okay. And here I get to the point where, oh, okay, well, all right, I got a problem. I cannot win in the game without something over here. So maybe here I decide, all right, I want to create one of these fountain objects, right? So I'll do something. Now, problem is I can't, if I paint that in, does that disappear? Yeah, it's going to disappear. So now I'm going to go back and forth and go say, okay, here's my original design. And you'll see I want to kind of paint things in, decide where they are in the world, where the hazards are, without necessarily going and implementing them all, but to come up with some kind of overall scheme to say, all right, here's the goal, here's where I'm going to start, figure out, a couple of enemies. So then you take a snapshot of that and say, okay, is that cool? Is that the whole game? Then I'm going to have, where's my score counter and so on. So it's basically kind of creating a document you can kind of work from. So once you have this, don't worry about implementing everything along the way. First, you want to like create the idea and put placeholders. Say, okay, here's one of the pendulums of death. Put another one over here, and just kind of draw them in if you want, just to get a feel for it. And then you go, okay, I know I need to get from here to here. These are the things I'm going to get in the way. These are where my enemies are going to be. These are going to be my types of enemies. And go ahead and jot down some notes in here along the way. So moving platforms will be switched on and off by certain coins. Okay, player needs a heads-up display. Right? That's the idea behind having a general design document. And then if you want, once you're in the game, you can kind of use this as the thing. But you can always do kind of a screen grab, or if you wanted to do this on paper, you certainly could do that as well. Depending on the kind of game you're doing, it's going to depend sort of how you do that. But highly recommend, if you want to get to the point of having a finished game, to stop and don't entirely incrementally do things, with little one-off demonstrations. It's good to have a bigger document to sort of go from, and then you can see, okay, what do I need to get done? Don't go too crazy with your levels. If you're doing this for your class, you've got to remember, if I have to grade 56 of these, this is probably way bigger than is needed. If something like, just here's, this is the screen, one screen's worth. So, just 1, 2, 3, something that was like a third of this size would be plenty. So that's one thing you can kind of figure out now. If I just painted in all the necessary platforms, what would be the quickest way? Try to do a speed run to say, all right, how long would it take me just using that character to get from here to here? So it'll give you a good indication. You can kind of get an idea, even without all the enemies in there. And, well, I know I got to put something over here. So we'll put, a little platform like that. Maybe I need something else over here, and so on and so on. Right? So go through their process. Hopefully they'll help you kind of scope your project. Right? We haven't talked too much about scoping the project to get it done in time. We don't have that much time left, so it's kind of good to take a little time, plan things out, think about your game for an hour or two that way, and then dive back into the actual programming. Okay, good luck.